Magandang araw mga ka-co-op. My name is Almer Pontejos, a corporate practitioner, university professor, and a cooperative advocate. I am sharing with you the systematic literature review I have made for cooperative with the title Analysis of the Leadership Decision-Making Processes in Cooperative, an Improved Governance Model for Sustainable Growth. The purpose of this literature review is to share with you some studies made related to decision making of our cooperators, with the intent to further enhance and improve the cooperative operations in general. Pero let's define first what is systematic literature review for better understanding and appreciation. So the systematic literature review is a rigorous and transparent method for identifying, selecting, critically appraising, and synthesizing the existing research to answer the specific research questions. So this is what we're going to do today. But before we proceed to understand the entire research itself, let's define first what is cooperatives. This is for better appreciation, especially for those who are new in the cooperative sector or have just onboarded recently. Cooperative is an autonomous association of persons united voluntarily to meet their economic, social, and cultural needs and aspirations through a jointly owned, democratically controlled enterprise. Cooperatives are democratically controlled, as we considered, if the member of the cooperative has only one vote in electing the board of directors. This is contrary to the corporation itself, wherein if you have a lot of shares in the corporations, you will also have an equivalent number of votes. But here in the cooperative, your voting power is regardless of how many shares that you have in the cooperative, which is very critical because your vote here could also provide you an ample time to determine who is actually the board of directors that you will be electing, who will make the proper decisions for your cooperative. So the cooperative is actually governed by the principles and values of the cooperative. So these principles and values that you've seen are actually the principles and values that the cooperative has been using for a couple of years, even more than 100 years. This is from the time that the cooperative was established in Europe. So the cooperative principles are the guidelines by which the cooperatives put their values into practice. The practical applications of these values and principles are prevalent in most of the cooperative members, officers, and leaders, governing the respective operations, establishing the guidelines and the policies, and most importantly, in making business decisions. In the Philippine sector, the cooperative actually established or started with several decrees made by President Ferdinand Marcos Sr. during the martial law regime, which organized the Samahang Nayons or the cooperative at the barrio level. However, the cooperative did not last. They have 22,000 Samang Nayons, as we recall, and there only 5% of them remain active as of 1986, on which the failure of each were attributed from the heightened conflicts between the cooperative movement and the government itself. So the failure to sustain the existence of the cooperative continue as the Cooperative Development Authority always releasing the numbers of the registered cooperative. In fact, in 2009, based on the report of the CDA and the Department of Finance, there's only 23,836 out of the 78,611 registered cooperatives are operating in the country, which means 70% of them remain unviable. This is a threatening situation, and this will continue specifically in the rural area. Like, for example, in Bukidnon. In Bukidnon, we have 382,000 registered cooperatives in 2016, and out of them, 32% of which are under dissolutions and are bound for dissolution. In 2021, CDA also released an official figure of the total registered cooperatives in the Philippines, which totaling 30,306, and 1,461 of them are delisted cooperatives. So these figures continue to decline by 31.53% as CDA released the official record of 20,752 active registered cooperatives in 2023. However, 20,752 of them was not necessarily considered as a definite figure, as there were several numbers of cooperatives tagged as non-compliance, and status could lead also towards dissolutions. So what does this mean? So this means that there is really a need for us to look on the challenges of the cooperative and what are those challenges and how we can address those. Hence, I'm providing you the systematic literature review framework that serve as a foundations on how we're going to go along with these particular research studies. And we started in identifying what are the challenges of the cooperative itself. And that includes the different pain points that we identified from the different researches that we did, which include the lack of the managerial skills, poor governance, limited access to capitalization, the inefficient operation, stakeholders' commitment and engagement are low, and even the unable for them to sustain the cooperative operation itself. Out of these pain points or challenges, we applied the fishbone analysis to determine the root cause of all of these challenges through the use of why strategy. And with this, we come up with the potential root cause of poor leadership and decision-making process. From this potential root cause, we already drafted the research inquiries, which used to determine what governance model that can be developed in aligning the leadership decision-making process of the management and the officers towards achieving the operational sustainability and growth of the cooperative. From here, we drafted the research methodology as mentioned here, and at the same time, we also drafted the research analysis, which are vital in determining what's the current state and the potential future state, depending on the insights that we have based on what we gathered the information, and that would lead us in drafting our conclusion, including our recommendation. Okay. So, but what's really the objective and the purpose of this research itself? The study aims is actually to determine the governance model that can be developed in aligning the leadership decision-making process of the management and officers towards achieving the operational sustainability and growth of the cooperative. And this will also help us address the research inquiries such as what are the poor decisions made by the cooperative officers and the board of directors in managing the operations? What are the implications of the poor decisions made by the officers or the board of directors for cooperative operations? And at the same time, what are the contributory factors in making decisions to the cooperative, which all of this will also lead us in achieving the research objective, which includes to analyze the current decision-making process in cooperative, to develop the governance model that enhances the leadership decision-making for sustainable growth of the cooperative, and of course, to recommend what training program and operational strategies for effectiveness of the cooperative. So in this particular context, we're going to lead in um, studying also the case study that we've done from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao in partnership with Union of Metro Manila Cooperative and Bayan Academy. But this time, we're going to focus first to two major billionaire cooperative in Luzon, which also have a great impact in our study about decision making. So one is the San Dionisio Credit Cooperative. San Dionisio Credit Cooperative in high level is actually the oldest community-based cooperative in Metro Manila. SDDC also shares a lot of ups and downs in their operations. And the beginning of the years of SDCC, credibility became an issue as well as the stigma of borrowing from cooperative. So meaning to say that all of the challenges that they have, they will be able to overcome. It's because they have established their leadership and as well as how they will be able to become more proactive and innovative and dealing with the businesses of the cooperative so that they will be able to sustain their operation. So in the San Dionisio Credit Cooperative, we apply the McKinsey model, which is a 7S, which you can see here in the category section. And then we look also to the sector of governance, to the sections of leadership, as well as to the aspect of sustainability. Why governance? Because governance has an impact on how the operations is being done in the cooperative. Leadership, it shows about the competency of our leaders and officers in the organization, which are actually vital in affecting the sound decision making of the cooperative, and at the same time, how this will also impact the sustainability of the cooperative operation itself. So I do not want to go through one by one of also what we have found in each aspect and also to the model of the McKinsey as we applied it here. But I would like to concentrate more on the opportunity area that we've seen here. So in the San Dionisio Credit Cooperative, in a governance perspective, there is really a potential area of improvement needed. Um, as we identified that there's a conflict of interest that arise within the organization, which includes in determining if they need to separate the functions of the operations versus those extending the credit operations to the staff of the organizations, which is actually influences the decision of the management to enhance or to make more effective the operation is and also to enhance further how the process would works. In the leadership perspective, they've experienced difficulties in managing the members because the members is actually growing and they established Pook Tulungan system or they call it PT system. But even the PT system itself, the leadership also fails, which means that there are also a lot of informations that they need to gather from all of the PTs, but we will not be able to do so. That contributed to the poor decision making of the San Dionisio Credit Cooperatives back then. And the challenge and the sustainability is actually more on maintaining the group dynamics of the PT system that they have already established. Okay. With that sense, let's move on to Soro Soro Ibaba Development Cooperative. It is one of the billionaire cooperative in the South. In fact, Soro Soro Ibaba Development Cooperative focuses on community development and enterprise building initiatives for SIDC to improve the lives of the members. Soro-Soro Ibaba development cooperatives are very passionate in driving the culture of KPI and KRI into the organization and also replication strategy so that they can also achieve their business pursuits. Similar to San Dionisio Credit Cooperatives, we apply the same context of analyzing the case and we come up with the opportunity area. In Soro-Soro Ibaba Development Authority, the conflict of interest is also highlighted, but this time it's really more on the officer level. So you can see even in the board level, there are also some level of consanguinity that needs also to be observed, which affect the decision making of the body itself. And that also boils down to the level of the organization's officers and to the management of the Soro-Soro Ibaba Development Cooperative. But the challenge also for them is about they're highly dependent with all of their internal resources. Well, dependency to the internal resources is actually good. However, if you're now trying to expand the business, you need also to explore outside so that you can also see the full picture and how could also this help in making the business of the SIDC will prosper in the future. So all of these cases are actually connected on how it impacts the proper and the sound decision making of the cooperatives officers and the board of directors. And we incorporated this, okay, in our overall analysis of the study, which also includes some literature that we gathered so far from the different sources. And having that said, okay, we come up with this kind of summary with the applications of the McKinsey model, which started with the structure. And again, we also focus on the governance, leadership, and sustainability section. And we also look onto the opportunity area to do further study based on the studies that we gathered from the literatures from the various sources. And of course, we have here the conclusion and the recommendation. But for the purpose of this presentation, I would like to concentrate more on the conclusions and the recommendations. So specific for the structure itself, it is very critical that we need also to identify what's really the function of the board of directors. there is an identified opportunity to develop better understanding on the role and responsibility of the board of directors versus to the general manager, to the officers of the cooperative, as the board of directors are perceived to be operational leaders rather than policy making body or decision making body of most of the cooperative. The findings are critically visible in the study made by Sarsale and the group and Satyagal, which we could also relate why there were issues and discussion may not have been resolved properly, leading to the potential poor decision making. So there's no wonder why in 2023 there were also several number of cooperatives whose status were tagged as non-compliance in the requirements of Cooperative Development Authority, and it might be also a contributory to the increasing rate of delisted cooperatives. Hence, the recommendation is to strengthen the governance. We need to solidify the business controls in the selection process of the members who are aiming for leadership position, okay, particularly for those who also wanted to become officer and board of directors. And this will enable us to mitigate the challenge in cooperative management, particularly those who are reliable or reliant to the decision making of the board. Hence, the drive of the election committee here is very critical in establishing the governance of the in selecting our officers and leaders in the organization. Secondly, about the staff and the skills, okay, very critical here that we emphasize the technical knowledge of our officers. Though the Cooperative Development Authority has mandated per Article 93 of 95 RA 9520 that all registered cooperatives shall undergo the three mandatory training courses, which includes the fundamental of cooperatives, governance and management of cooperatives, and the financial and credit management. However, these trainings do not necessarily, okay, qualify the competencies of our trainees to assess the understanding as well as the appreciations of those training or mandatory training towards the actual application. Officers with non-business related courses may not be able also to fully appreciate the trainings, particularly related to credit and financial aspect. Why? Because they have a limited to zero background or experience of this area of expertise. And as a result, this may also lead us to potential financial operations mismanagement, lose control, where the check and balance may also be in compromise, and the loss of potential investment opportunity or business venture opportunities. The skills development here is also critical. It's the pressing need of the cooperative sector in targeted skills development training, which needs to cater the need of the members in order to support the business model towards the cooperative growth and development. However, the realistic output of skills development of the cooperative officers is perceived to be difficult to achieve. Why? Because it's also highly dependent with how the election committee able to govern in looking for the officers to be appointed, to be elected, and to be hired as in staffs, officers, and directors of the cooperatives. Okay. Our recommendation is to have a targeted developmental training. Through the completions of the though the completions of the mandatory trainings added value to the overall basic knowledge of the officers and the board of directors, it is also recommended for the regulatory body to strengthen the partnership with the Education Training Committee of the Union of Cooperatives to determine the opportunity area, especially the specific training developmental need of the sector that is practical and impactful in performing the respective roles and responsibility of cooperative officers and board of directors. And third is all about the systems and strategies. Here in this particular aspect, very critical that we emphasize the entrepreneurial mindsets of our officers, okay, and management. The organizational maturity here is very critical to the cooperative sectors to develop the technical know-how and the willingness to understand the entire business operations even more. And also the other investment opportunity are not so prevalent in most of the cooperative. This is relatively true to some cooperatives who have been into medium-sized categories for several decades, like Llano Multipurpose Cooperative, and may be true for 1,400 plus cooperatives who were delisted in 2023 from the official registered list of CDA. So the case of SIDC, Sorosoro Ibaba Development Cooperative, is a living testament of going beyond their craft and applying the risk-based community analysis to determine the need of the community towards the identifying the business opportunity to venture in. Hence, this is also related to the ability to innovate, okay, which is the adaptability of the cooperative to innovate, which is not necessarily considered as a challenge for cooperatives with good level of liquidity, but for those who have embraced and able to envision the long-term financial efficiency and the operational growth, opportunity, and sustainability it could provide, like for example, Luntian Multipurpose Cooperative, which adapted it when they applied the vertical integration that resulted to successful progression of their cooperatives. Hence, the recommendation is for the cooperative to have a strong partnership as well with private sector. Let's explore the opportunity by developing partnership with the private sector, especially the large corporations or industry leaders, in sharing the best practices and technical expertise that can be adapted and able to equip our leaders in the cooperative in their decision making process and how this actually support the business growth and sustainability of the cooperative business as a whole. And lastly, um, in the aspect of styles and values, conservatism is also at stake. Okay, the Filipino values of being conservative is actually good. However, it continues to be also a hindrance to innovate and foster the business opportunity and growth, which is prevalent in the study made by Baltis and Luderhaven, where the Philippines is also considered as top to be characterized as much higher power distance, which means it limits the negotiation power of the some businessmen in dealing with business opportunities. In this particular sense, it also affects the business operations, which impact them significantly. And that leads us to reservation support. So it means that if there is a challenge that the cooperative has experienced today, the support from the government be reserved to reserve them is actually very critical. The increasing rate of 31.5% delisted cooperatives in 2023 is really a manifestation of a lack of awareness and support that could be extended from big brother cooperatives and government, which CDA itself. So there were several cooperatives led to dissolutions without any reservation process support from CDA. In other financial institutions, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas supports non-performing banks through reservation process to help them to recover and get back on track. So this is also what we're looking at on the side of the regulatory body, which is the Cooperative Development Authority. So to summarize, the study is actually largely focused on leadership decision making, which is influenced and affected by the different factors, which covers the area of understanding the functions of the board of directors, developing the technical knowledge to understand the business and operating model of the cooperative itself, which is anchored in the enhancing the needed skill in managing the cooperative itself, business familiarity, business acumen, the ability to innovate, culture and support that needed from the regulatory body. This highlights that decision-making is bounded with several key factors, not only on the principles and the values of the cooperative. With the gathered literatures, given the growing number of cooperatives becoming inactive year on year, with primarily rooting from the quality of decision making, the importance and the need of this study must be done very, very soon in partnership with the cooperative organizations such as unions, federations, and even the government sector to suppress, if not totally eliminate, okay, our challenge in the cooperative nowadays. So, but before Before we end, I would like also to emphasize again that the purpose of this literature review is to share with you some studies made related to decision making of our cooperators with the intent to further enhance and improve the cooperative operations in general. So if you want a full copy of my research paper, you can message me anytime and I'm happy to share with you the details that you need. Thank you and don't forget to subscribe at cooptalks.ph.